How's it going, everyone? This is the Spegmeister, and welcome to the 6th mission in my Halo Anniversary Legendary walkthrough. On this episode, I will be covering 343 Guilty Spark.
The last transmission from the captain's dropship was from this area. That was over 12 hours ago. When you locate Captain Keyes, radio in, and I'll come pick you up.
So right at the mission start, if you go over by the Crash Pelican, you'll find a stockpile of assault rifle ammo, as well as a few health kits, and then there's some strange ammo boxes on the ground that we haven't seen before in the campaign. That is if you're playing through the mission in chronological order. Up ahead in this section, there will be some grunts and jackals by this downed dropship, and there's a couple different ways you can deal with this part. If you go uphill to the left, you can get the high ground on these guys. Otherwise, if you follow the path down to the right, you can try to tackle these enemies down low. Either way is acceptable for this part. If you continue across this log, you'll reach the next section, but if you hop down and then follow this incline up, you'll find an active camo module stored away behind these bushes. This is completely optional to pick up because you can literally run past the next group of enemies. On the other hand, if you happen to acquire it, you can have a little bit of fun here and knock out these enemies while hitting them from behind. In a way, you get to play the role as the predator in this part, which is pretty funny. When you get down below in the structure, go ahead and chuck a frag grenade through this entrance and watch the enemies fly. Once you get inside this room, just watch out for the jackals that are waiting for you. You can try to use a plasma grenade to clear them out. In this room, you'll find 5 jackals that gather up right near that doorway, and you should be able to kill 3 or 4 of those jackals with 1 grenade and mop up the last with the plasma pistol.
blow your brains out! Get away from me! Ah! Ah! Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place, the monsters are everywhere! Play dead! That's what I did. Play dead. They took the live ones. Oh God, I can still hear them. Monsters! Ah! 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 Just leave me alone! Sarge, Mendoza, Vicente. Oh God, the things took them away. They're gone! Get it? Gone! They won't get me! Oh God! Oh God, I don't want to be like them, please. Please, no. Please, no.
Once you cross this bridge, you can use this opportunity to swap out for an assault rifle. Otherwise, you'll find one in the next part.
Why do we always have to listen to this old stuff, Sarge?
Watch your mouth, son. This stuff is your history. It should remind you grunts what we're fighting to protect.
Hey, if the Covenant want to wipe out this particular part of my history, that's fine by me.
Yeah, better it than us.
You ask them real nice next time you see them, Vicente. I'm sure they'll be happy to oblige.
LZ looks clear. I'm bringing us down.
Go, go, go! Stay close, Jenkins. Mendoza, move it up! Wait here for the captain and his squad, then get your ass inside.
Sir!
Okay, let's move!
Which is weird, right? I mean, look at it. Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant? Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA.
Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir. But it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something. What's going on, soldier?
We've got contact. Lost them. But they're not coming. They're just tearing through us. What the slow? No!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But-
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an
Sarge,
order.
listen.
What is that?
Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it!
Sergeant, we're surrounded.
God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
What is it? Local!
Get back here, Marine! That's an order!
Jenkins!
Alright, so after you come out of the cutscene, you'll find a stockpile of assault rifles on the floor to your left. Go ahead and pick one of those up if you didn't beforehand, and then make your way to the door on the far side of the room. This is our first engagement with the Flood infection forms, and these guys are fairly easy to deal with if you have the assault rifle. You don't necessarily have to hold down the trigger to kill off a large group of them. Instead, what you can do is just fire it in burst shots, and sometimes the infection forms will pop and the debris will kill some of their buddies from behind. As you're fighting them, just be careful not to allow too many of them to jump on you and tear through your shields and health. Once your shields are gone, if any of them jump on you, they can just latch onto you and eat your health up. Once you notice a change in music, go ahead and come back to the door you entered from. And what you'll want to do is try to get a grenade in there and kill the combat forms waiting inside. Ideally, you want to try to get past the infection forms. If any of the combat forms make it through, just try hit them on their left side and knock out their whip arm. As for this next part, you can just sit down here, open fire, and try to draw the flood down here to you. You'll also find that the melee attack doesn't work really well against the combat forms. It can be really ineffective, especially on legendary, so I usually don't bother with it. When you come into this room, you'll have an engagement with the Covenant and the Flood, and what you can do is just use a couple of grenades to try to wipe them out. As for this room, what you can do is open fire as soon as the door opens and try to get the combat forms to gather directly beneath you. After you've done that, go ahead and try to bounce a grenade behind that piece of cover, and then you can watch the enemies fly. Unfortunately, I didn't demonstrate that well here because one of the combat forms jumped up after me and threw off my throw. Something you'll have to be aware of on this level is that they'll try to jump through the floor, which is kind of cheap, but it happens. As for this next room, you can try to let the Covenant get the Flood's attention, and as soon as enough combat forms try to get by you, go ahead and then swing to your left and make your way to the back of the room. And then as for these combat forms, just be careful not to get yourself caught in a corner. If you ever find yourself cornered against these guys and they can still melee you, you'll die real quickly. You won't stand much of a chance. So the best you can do is just keep moving around and try to keep them a good arm's length away from you. Once the Flood are down, then you can go ahead and deal with the grunts and jackals remaining up top. Now, what I'm about to show you next is a optional engagement. This is a part that you can skip entirely if you want to just keep going with the mission. But what you'll find in this elevator room are 3 combat forms and a few infection forms. And you can just use your plasma pistol to knock them all down. Now, in case you're wondering, this is the same elevator that we took to get down here in the first place. So it's a really nice set piece that Bungie threw into the game. It really sets the mood for this mission. Kind of giving the feeling that you're trapped down here with all these Flood waiting for you. Now, if you're playing on normal or heroic, you'll find a good few shotguns. I think it's just a couple of shotguns by those Marines. But on Legendary, those are replaced with assault rifles. In this room, you'll also have some combat forms to deal with. And the best way to deal with these guys is to get their attention and try to gather by this door. At the bottom here, this is going to be our first engagement with the combat forms using weapons. You'll especially want to be careful around the ones that have these assault rifles. While they're not particularly useful when you use them, the Flood can tear through your shields rather quickly using those weapons. Up on top of those crates, there's an overshield power-up, but I'm going to save that for a little bit longer. What I'll end up doing instead is pick up an active camo in the room and try to clear out as many enemies as possible. This happens to be the first area where we'll be able to get our hands on a shotgun if you're playing on Legendary. So just be aware of where the shotguns roughly are, so that when you come back here, you can go ahead and find one and then you can proceed. Once the room looks pretty well clear, you can go ahead and come back, pick up the overshield, and then we're going to acquire the second active camo in the room, and then find a shotgun and move on. Sometimes you might find some more shotguns either by your dead Marines or the dead flood that you kill. As you make your way through here, just clear out these side rooms really quick before you move into the next main room. That way you don't get ambushed by the flood from behind. Once you're in this room, go ahead and take out the combat forms down below before you tackle the ones that are above. As you make your way into this room, watch out for the flood that are on the upper level with you. Targeting them first. And you can try to do something similar as you did in a previous room. And try to chuck a grenade down below and see if you can get a multi-kill on the combat forms. There I executed it a lot better than I did in the earlier section. As for this room, you can either wait by the doorway and let the combat forms come to you. Otherwise, you can rush in with the shotgun and knock out the ones that are on ground level with you. I also take the time to kill the ones up top so that they're not shooting down on me later. This part is also optional to clear out, but there's 3 small rooms that just wrap in this hallway that just wraps around. And then there's just a few combat forms waiting in here for you. Again, completely optional. Up on this crate, you'll find a whole bunch of shotgun ammo as well as a health kit. So go ahead and pick those up. And this is an area, if you happen to run out of shotgun ammo in the next part, or happen to be running low, this is a good area to come back to. Once you're on the balcony, go ahead and take out the combat forms on your side, and then switch to your pistol, and then you can target the ones that are on the opposite end. And then as you make your way to the other side, some combat forms will funnel through this doorway. You can use this opportunity to use your grenades and shotgun to get their attention.
This is Echo 419. Chief, is that you? I lost your signal when you disappeared inside the structure. What's going on down there? I'm tracking movement all over the place.
Sir, thank God you're here. We've been lost out here for hours. After we lost contact with the rest of the mission, we headed for the RV point, and then these things, they ambushed us. We gotta get out of here.
There's a large tower a few hundred meters from your current position. Find a way above the fog and foliage canopy and I can move in and pick you up.
Once you meet up with those group of Marines up top, go ahead and take point on this last part. And what you'll want to do is just try to draw as much of the Flood's attention as possible, keeping the Marines alive. This part can be especially tricky since the Flood can drop in from all sorts of directions. So keep a good eye on your motion tracker as you make your way through the swamp. If you hang around this area long enough, your Marines will beat you to this narrow passageway. And this passageway ends up being a ambush point for you. Unfortunately, you can lose a lot of Marines on this part from the infection forms alone. If you do end up losing all your Marines, it's not a huge crisis, because this last part is somewhat manageable even without them. If you have any grenades left, this is the good time to use them. And then once you get close enough to the tower, some new reinforcements will appear in the area. And if you're playing on the lower difficulties, or if you want to challenge on legendary, you can fight this area out and kill all the combat forms that spawn in. Otherwise, if you want to end the mission faster, you can just walk up to the tower and touch it.
Who's your daddy now?
Greetings. I am the monitor of Installation 04. I am 343 Guilty Spark. Someone has released the flood. My function is to prevent it from leaving this installation, but I require your assistance. Come, this way.
Chief, I've lost your signal. Where'd you go? Chief! Chief!
So there we go. That is the end of 343 Guilty Spark. A rather spooky mission, but it's one of the easiest missions in the campaign. I would put it right behind the Pillar of Autumn. But when it comes to the encounters on this mission, especially against the Flood, the way to do it is just take your time. When it comes to fighting the combat forms and the infection forms, the real easy way to deal with them is just to back away from them slowly and put rounds in them. So anyway, hopefully you guys found this guide to be really useful on your legendary run. And thank you all for joining in with me on this episode. I appreciate the support. And be sure to check out my other guides on this channel. Otherwise, hopefully I will catch you on a future one. So take care, everyone.